Okay, and as far as like with people who are more immoral versus people who are more moral, what are your thoughts about people who may have a personality disorder, so narcissism
Mm,
or you
yeah,
know how people say sociopath or psychopath, like people that have those chemical imbalances that they they can control their decisions, but they
yep.
can't, and they tend
They
to
just don't have
do
the incentive not to, right?
right. They
Yeah.
tend to do immoral things. So, what are your thoughts on that? Like, can they be forgiven because sometimes they can't necessarily control that because of how their brain works, or what do you think?
Yeah, so I know someone actually with antisocial personality disorder,
Okay.
which is usually categorized by like very low empathy,
Mhm.
right? I think empathy definitely is in place to help us recognize other people as people like us, right? Like I can think, I can dream, I can do all these stuff, and everyone else can do that too. Everyone's like me. Wow, And so that empathy definitely helps us like subvert like doing immoral things. I do think though that like from my conversations with him, he still recognizes other people as like technically other people, right? Like he
Okay.
knows that as a fact they have DNA as well. They're still functioning humans as well.
Mhm.
Even if that empathy isn't in place, he can still recognize that aspect, and he can recognize that the pain they feel is. He doesn't really ever say the same, right? But he'll say like
Mhm.
he recognizes that they feel pain, right?
Mhm.
Um, in like some more sobering experiences, he'll talk about like how he sees other people as like more creatures, like animals, not like him.
Mhm.
And of course, that's incredibly like disturbing to hear. But
Right.
I also understand like a lot of it is his personality disorder, right? I
Mhm.
would argue that he's still able to fully understand that like society has agreed that what he has is a mental disorder. He's
Mhm.
not like better than everyone else. He's actually incredibly worse because he doesn't have empathy. And so
Mhm.
he's no longer like he doesn't think he's like allowed to like kill other people like a serial killer like Ted Bundy, right? He
Right.
doesn't think that like that's fine because everyone else isn't a really human being. He understands that like from a moral like from a sociological landscape, right? That
Yeah.
is wrong, and so he doesn't do it, right?
Mhm.
Um, he doesn't have the empathy, so he doesn't have like the guilt punishment. I think like in our society we often have that double-edged sword where like if we do something wrong, we will not only be punished by the criminal system, right? We'll go to jail, right?
Mhm.
And we'll also just feel guilty about it, right?
Yeah.
He doesn't have that guilty aspect, but he still recognizes that jail exists. So if he does something wrong, he'll still go to jail. Um,
Mm.
and so that really prevents him from doing immoral things. I think if we can't like say like, oh well, he killed like three people, but he's antisocial, so we'll forgive him, right? We still have to
Right.
punish him like everyone else. But
Mhm.
I do think it's important to like recognize that like the punishments maybe don't work as well as everyone else because if we just give them time to think, like they're not going to think about like, oh, I shouldn't have done that. They're going to think, how do I do this next time without with like getting away with it, right?
Wow. Yeah.
Which really goes back into the moral bioenhancement where like I've talked to people about this is extremely disturbing, but like soldiers in war, right?
Mhm.
How do you make the perfect soldier? The first thing I would do is get rid of empathy, right?
Hmm.
Um, and so because obviously empathy makes them human beings, and that makes them actually able to not want to kill the enemy, right?
Right.
And so the first thing you do in war is you like, especially with like World War II, we would talk about like the Germans as the Jerrys or the Japanese as the Japs, and like try to like dehumanize them so we didn't see them as like killing other humans, right?
Mhm.
And so if we could do that on like a biological level, that'd be fantastic. And
Mhm.
so when it comes to antisocial personality disorder, I say we just do the opposite, right?
Mhm.
And give them empathy. As hard as that would be, I don't know if that would be easy, but figure out
Yeah.
the empathy center and
Mhm.
try to instill that into them, and so they were more able to recognize other people as people.